Now, this is actually the fifth video in the series that I made when my mother was dying back in New York and my wife was completely out of control with alcohol use disorder and all of the problems that we had to deal with during this experience. And the fourth one, we were in Washington, D.C. My wife had fallen down, smashed the toilet, flooded out the room, and we were essentially asked to leave the hotel the next day. We were still in Washington, so my son and I still wanted to go to the Smithsonian. As difficult as that was with my wife, who was inebriated constantly, and we still couldn't figure out why. So we drove this to the Smithsonian. We went to the Natural History Museum. Amanda, I told her to stay in the car. She just wanted to hang out in the car anyways. I said, fine. Griffin and I can go spend a couple hours in the Smithsonian. We went there. We looked at the dinosaurs. I think we looked at Lucy, which is the earliest history of mankind. It was fascinating. We were having fun. And we were there about 2 hours. And I texted Amanda to see how she's doing. Got no response. So we spent another half hour, and I was starting to get really stressed because if you don't hear from Amanda, you know there's a problem. I said, Griff, we'll come back, but let's go check and see what's going on with your mother. So we walked back out of the place, all the way down the parking to the parking area where she was, and she was parked in front. And even from the distance, I went, oh no, what is going on? Her legs were sticking out the side of the car, and she was in the passenger side. We walked up, and she was, completely passed out in the front seat with her legs hanging out of the car. And Griffin and I just looked like, what is going on? Where did she get alcohol? She's sitting in her car. There's no alcohol here. How can she be this way? And we were just astounded. From there, Griffin decided to look inside the back of the car, and he opened the trunk, and her luggage was opened, and apparently there was a bottle of wine, two brand new bottles of wine, as I remember, 1.75 liters, and inside the car, she had guzzled an entire 2 liters of wine while we were out there. I don't know where she got them, how she snuck them into her luggage. It was just beyond, it was beyond human comprehension. And I looked at Griff and I go, Griff, here's the deal. I think we're just going to have to go home. I think we should fly your mother home. And I've had enough of it. I can't spend another minute with your mother. And she goes, I can't either. We can't even spend a few hours having fun at a museum without some kind of drama taking place every minute of every day. And she was sucking the life out of the both of us as well as herself. And it was the breaking point for me. I don't think we were ever the same after this particular event. We were essentially kicked out of my dad's house because she had polished off my dad's entire liquor cabinet. And now I was just trying to get away just to get a break from that episode. And it was just one episode after another. And if anybody's been in this situation, it has nothing to do with disparaging my wife or alcoholics, but this is what families go through. It becomes an impossible, unbelievable situation that literally wreaks havoc on your own brain as a family member. And I really think this was the moment I got the most frustrated at all. Eventually we got Amanda to sit up in the car seat. She was really completely inebriated. She rested her head against the window. We started driving back to Syracuse, but it was getting later in the day at this point, and I remember we had got all the way back to Gettysburg because we were cutting right back through Gettysburg, and Amanda was really doing bad. The car reeked of urine because she was just covered in urine and bodily fluids. And I remember one time I go, Amanda, can you just stop drinking? And she was like, I'm not that bad. I'm really not that bad. And I can remember we were driving on the outskirts of Gettysburg, and we were right by this historical house. I go back to it sometimes because I've been back there. And I pulled over, and I remember just unleashing a volley of verbal, just maybe not the best etiquette. And I was at the end of my rope. I can remember just feeling so angry. Just stop fucking drinking. Can you just stop drinking for 1 day, 1 minute, 1 hour? And she just was like, oh. And she got out of the car and she walked over to by the side of the barn and she started crying. And I looked at Griff and I closed the door, and he's like, we needed to break. We drove into town. And I ended up getting a hotel in Gettysburg, on the outskirts of Gettysburg. We booked the hotel. Griffin and I walked in the hotel room, and we just sat there for a minute, and we were kind of quiet because we were so traumatized at this point from the last 3 weeks of our last 2.5 3 weeks of our life on this vacation. And he goes, I guess we better go get Mom. Yeah, I guess we can't just leave her in the middle of a field at a barn. So we drove back, got her. She was all weepy, still inebriated, and we took her back to the hotel. She had her bottles of wine in her luggage, and we brought the luggage in. I handed her a bottle of wine. I go, Griffin and I are going to go out and on the town tonight. We need to break from each other. So that night, Griffin and I went on a ghost tour in Gettysburg, and it was really cool. They go to the cemeteries, and they talk about the ghosts that are still wandering around Gettysburg, and it was such a nice relief and a break from the madness. And the next day, we got back in the car and we drove back to Syracuse, and that was the end of that side trip, which was supposed to be a break from the madness, and it was nothing but. This is what families go through on a daily. And again, this story and so many more, this is just really one chapter of the book, but it's called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. And it's never to disparage the alcoholic. It's not about that. This is the voice from the family members, and it's an important voice to hear, okay, because family members need to be heard of what they go through. We always hear about the alcoholic, and yes, I understand the origins and all that. This is from the family perspective. It's also important for alcoholics to understand how they affect their families, recovering alcoholics, to make sure they never go in that direction, and for active alcoholics to realize they're not just affecting themselves, they're affecting everybody in their life. And again, I go live Monday through Friday right around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We have the Facebook group you can find in the link tree, and when you're ready to work with me one-on-one, set up a breakthrough call. That's also in the link tree. And again, thanks so much for listening.